Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, Brian McWilliams, where we're going to be making some jokes, laughing out at broken world, but also laying out some philosophy for the future, how we can fix this mess we're in and have a great time doing it all with a Mean Age Daydream. What's up, buttercups or the B-cups? That way the show is catered towards medium-breasted women or large-breasted men. Welcome, B-Cups, to Mean Age Daydream. I'm, of course, your beautiful host, Brian McWilliams, fresh off of the porch tour with Robbie the Fire Bernstein. Thank you to Robbie for having me come along for that. That was a good time. And we did shows in Santa Barbara, Aguanga, and right here in Los Angeles at my very own house in Hawthorne. All great shows. Big thank you to everybody that came out. And if you were just tuning in now after coming to those shows, all the better. So, anyway, let's hop into it, gang. It's been quite a momentous few days. We had an international stock market crash, a massive sell-off, the largest sell-off and loss in the Japanese stock market since 1987. We also had Kamala Harris put her balls to the walls, selecting Tim Walz. We'll talk about that a little bit. And we'll get into a couple of other topics as well, including what's going on in the UK. But first things first, let's talk about Tim Walz. Kamala Harris is, of course, notably, a piece of socialist shit. She is one of the most progressive senators that has ever existed. But she's by far, when she was in the Senate, voted with the most progressive leftist policies. She, of course, has been on the books as saying she wants to ban fracking. I cannot talk right now. Fracking. She wants to ban franking? Wouldn't it be funny if franking was a very specific type of a gay sexual act? And none of us know what it is, but Kamala Harris wants to ban it. Anyway, she wants to ban fracking. She's now walked that back. Of course, she was all for reparations, all for basically whatever lunacy that you believe in on the left side of things. She was actively pushing it, as well as calling everybody racist, race baiting, everything else. And obviously, as been well discussed, changing what she identifies as the winds blow. Because it's been interesting that, for me, what bugs me about the whole Kamala Harris, is she Indian? Is she African American? Which she's definitively not, since she's Jamaican and Indian. I still can't talk. Am I stroking out? Am I hosting the Emmys like that blonde chick? God damn, cannot talk. Whatever she's identifying as, and of course, there's one of the most hilarious, mock-ups using AI, God bless AI, which is Michael Jackson. It's black, it's white, but somebody put Kamala Harris's face on it. So every time she looks to the left from that little video, it's black, it's white. She turns into all the different races. But that to me is the thing that's really pissing me off. It's not that you can't be biracial. Again, this is the example of gaslighting, like I talked about with the Olympic ceremony, with these leftists trying to gaslight us into believing different things and not seeing what's in front of our face. You can be biracial. Oh, Barack Obama was biracial. Who gives a damn? I don't care that Kamala Harris is biracial. I'm sure most people don't either. It's the emphasis on which genetic fallout this tends to be, with her now leaning into the black stuff so that she can get votes, so she can get support from, twerking rappers, so she can talk in an accent that's definitively not hers, or she puts on a different accent when she's in Congress. You pick, you choose. I am tending to lay with the side that says Kamala Harris has been a kid of privilege and has lived a pretty much blessed existence. So I doubt that she talks with the accent she is putting on, the good old shucks darn Hillary Clinton hot sauce in your purse act that she's putting on, especially with that ridiculous video from the BET Awards that I shared with you guys, where she's saying, they not like us. Yeah, they're exactly like you, Kamala. All of your elite buddies in DC are exactly like you. That's why you're in the position you are at. But the fact that she's emphasizing these different things is what's getting everybody's gander up. So, Kamala, who I had joked on the porch tour, if she really wants to prove she's black, she needs to get her wig pulled off in a fight in a McDonald's. Kamala had to even out this ultra, I'm a racial warrior. She had to even out the, hey, come on out for me, black people only, and exclusively, to appeal to the broader population. What does that mean? Well, as I've said, as many others have said, that leaves her one choice and one choice only, which is why she couldn't go with somebody like a Pete Buttigieg, because having a ultra, the most progressive senator paired with a gay guy, a white, even though he may be white, is not going to draw in as many people as if you pick an old white guy who happens to have been around for a while, which is exactly what Tim Walz was. So Tim Walz, congratulations. You won the DEI old fat white guy that's in the establishment sweepstakes. Well done, good sir. You can now dip your walls in it. And if you understand that reference, I want to dip my walls in it. Then you've seen old episodes of The State. And The State is one of the funnier comedy shows out there. Old MTV show, guys, The State. And speaking of, I'll circle back to Tim Walz because I want to talk more about him. I really had no clue who this guy was. I don't remember even hearing his name being talked about in regards to who she was looking at picking. So I had to look into what he believes in and what he's voted for, and it ain't good. Literally, the only thing this guy's done good is lowering taxes on some small businesses. But speaking of, I want to stick my walls in it, which is the original is I want to stick my balls in it. I want to dip my balls in it. Sorry, gods of the state and comedy nerds like me. I want to dip my balls in it. Members of the state, including Thomas Lennon. Actually, let me read these off because Adam Choate is a friend of the show and runs a lot of comedy shows up here to support the Mises Caucus and is a good old-fashioned libertarian man. He had tagged me and wanted me to talk about this comedy show because it's not just white guys out here for Kamala Harris anymore. No, it's now all sorts of white comedians as well, plus D.L. Hughley. And these chunks had decided that it's a great idea if we get together and have a fundraising comedy show for Kamala called Comedians for Kamala. Now, they did not spell comedians with a K, as they should have. But where's this fucking list? Here we go. So the thing that annoys the shit out of me here is you got Comics for Kamala. And come, laugh at your favorite comedians backing this obnoxious broad. And really, it's unfair. They're doing this over Zoom, which is unfair. Unless they have Kamala Harris on the Zoom the entire time where you can audibly hear her fake lizard person laugh. I'll tune in to watch. If you've got Kamala on there, non-muted the entire time going at every joke, but she wouldn't laugh at the punchlines, right? We all know that. She wouldn't laugh at the punchlines. She would laugh between the punchlines. She would laugh at the breath intake because she doesn't have an intellect to understand comedy because she never laughs at the right parts. She only laughs at the uncomfortable stuff where she's asked something that she doesn't know. So Kamala would be laughing. Considering the contextual history of when Kamala Harris laughs, she would laugh only at the jokes she didn't understand, which is all of them. I guess is a good audience member for a comedy show. So anyway, it's a list of people that you would presume would be on here. Ed Helms, John Stamos, Tom Arnold. Tom Arnold is a fucking lunatic. As far right as Roseanne Barr has gone, Tom Arnold has gone 75 times more left and more insane. I'm surprised they put him on here. I didn't think he's a draw anymore. I don't think he's funny. I didn't even know that he knew enough people to get on this. And the risk reward of this seems very much slanted in the risk category. But Tom Arnold, Rosie O'Donnell, what a surprise. You want to see that old flunking chunk out there trying to tell jokes? Rosie O'Donnell hasn't done comedy in God knows how long. And now currently looks like the Pepperidge Farm man. Unless it's exclusively Cookie Bakes jokes and about Pepperidge Farm remembers back when she used to get her snatch eaten by hot chicks instead of whatever, 75-year-old prostitute is willing to roll up to her mansion. I don't want to hear it. Who else? Tom Lennon, as I mentioned. Thomas Lennon, I have an immense amount of respect for Thomas Lennon as an actor, as a writer. Thomas Lennon and Ben something Grant, they did Reno 911. Of course, The State, very popular show. But these guys, in addition to doing all those great shows, also wrote so many movies. They have one of the best screenwriting books because, as you know, I am a screenwriter who just unfortunately doesn't get paid to do it. They wrote this great screenwriting book it's called something like How to Write Movies for Fun and Profit. And they really break down how you have to just completely give up on your dreams of making a really good movie and really paint by the numbers. And you can try to get your shit in here and there, but really, if you want to work, you got to sell out. Now, I know that. There's a reason probably why doing what I do here, my life's more difficult than it needs to be in regards to doing anything in Hollywood. But I respect them for that. And the number of films, like they did all the Night at the Museum movies, Herbie the Love Bug, Balls of Fury. Now, that's a great movie. Check out their credits. It's long and deep, but very disappointing to see Thomas Lennon on here. D.L. Hughley, as I mentioned, Jason Bateman, who is not a stand-up comedian, John Hamm, not a stand-up comedian, Patton Oswalt. No more, if you had to have somebody on here, of course, it's going to be uber leftist disappointment, Patton Oswalt, a man who I can't stand anymore. I don't think's funny anymore because he lost his fucking mind over Trump and COVID. Kathy Griffin, again, has never been funny, will never be funny. Unless this audience is exclusively 65-year-old gay men in Palm Springs, no one's going to laugh at a thing she has to say, except in agreement claps, right? Anyway, it goes on and on. Pathetic. Nick Offerman on here. What a fucking disappointment he is. It's just, what a disappointment. But to say comedians for Kamala, number one, the Biden administration, Kamala Harris, there's been, if anything, a war on comedy because you'll recall they tried to censor anybody trying to make jokes, trying to make fun of COVID, trying to make fun of the election. They made efforts to take those people off the internet. This is documented. It came out in the Twitter files. It came out in everything we know about Facebook. We know about the collusion between the government, between the Stanford Internet Observatory, between all these international bodies. And they didn't just take off what they called misinformation. They took off jokes. Because jokes poke holes in the bullshit narratives of the powerful. That's what they're really designed to do in many ways. Not that there's a thing to punching up and punching down. Funny's just funny. But these people sold their souls to attack anything that didn't go along with the government-sponsored narrative of the left and of the Biden administration and of the CDC, all of which turned out to be what? Complete and total nonsense. These comic assholes went along with it. And now they're going to go up there and they're going to stump for Kamala, a chick that has zero sense of humor. It also doesn't need fundraising. Like, are we really going to pretend Kamala Harris needs some raise in attention? She needs more money. Kamala Harris is the corporate interest. Kamala Biden, bet it was the Biden-Harris ticket. What do you think that was? It was who checks the boxes, who's going to fall in line, who's going to do what we tell them, who's going to benefit, and who's going to make sure everybody else gets their backs patted and their jerk off around the front while they're getting fucked in the ass. That's what this was. So these jerks think that we got to have a comics for Kamala thing to what? Show that she should be the candidate? We already know she's the candidate. She already got in there by a virtue of a coup to go around the primaries to make sure that the American people didn't have a vote. All the delegates are already locked in. She doesn't need the money. The DNC has more money coming out of its asshole than most orphanages have. I was going to make a really inappropriate joke there. You know what? I'm not going to make the joke about what's coming out of the orphans. I'm not going to do it. That's 100% going to kill my algorithm. But you can probably guess where I was going to go with this when it comes to orphans being abused. That's just ridiculous. It comes across as pathetic. It comes across as just so disingenuously virtue signaling nonsense, which is what the left's calling card is, if we're being perfectly honest. The calling card is, we've already killed comedy, but we're going to show up anyway and make sure that you know that we stand for this thing. I can guarantee you, and by the way, this has already happened. I didn't get to see this special. I was too busy doing other stuff, but especially because I just wrapped up 3 days of porch tours, so there's no way my wife is going to let me watch this Monday night comedy thing these jerk-offs put on. But I can assure you there was not a single genuine laugh during that special. The only genuine humor you can get from somebody making fun of Trump is from a Shane Gillis. Why? Because Shane Gillis isn't doing it just out of spite. He's not going to fall into the same tired tropes that the left uses and has used for the last 4 years. Plus, because of course they also had to make fun of Trump during the time he was in office. The comedy that came out during that era was the darkest of times. It's led to a revolution in comedy in a lot of ways because people got sick of that and said, none of this is good. All of this is predictable. It's dog shit, uncreative, predictable, repetitive shit. We got to do something different. Shane Gillis, when he does Donald Trump, when he goes on something like a Kill Tony and slays doing Donald Trump, is because he's not coming at it from this brainwashed, nonsensical position on Trump. He's actually seeing the nuance. He's actually telling jokes. He's not just doing a tired repetition of what's already been done. I can guarantee you that's all that you saw at this comedy show. Anyway, moving back on. Let's go back to Tim Walz. Let's dip our balls back into Tim. Okay, so what is Tim Walz known for? Well, let me play you a clip, number one, and this is a recent clip for this guy who is in no way, shape, or form a legitimate politician who looks out for your best interest, because what did he support? Okay, all the COVID lockdowns. What did he support? Black Lives Matter protest. No problem there, right? What does he want to crack down on? All of your freedoms during COVID. He's your typical super lefty Democrat piece of garbage. But unlike with most of them, he's willing to go out there and really voice that, you know what, socialism, guys, it's pretty great. Not just great. In fact, it embodies something that I've talked about, that I'm trying to claim for the Libertarian Party. But I think from a more rational perspective, community, neighborliness. Right? Because as libertarians, we believe in a voluntary society that's not force-based. With a libertarian society, we believe in being able to fund, crowdfund for healthcare, being able to crowdfund for taking care of sick and the elderly, being able to bring people together for trust and a check on reality. That's neighborliness. That's community, right? Well, let's check out what Tim has to say about it, because he has a bit of a different opinion. Hold on, let me share screen. And this clip's been going around. I'm not gonna go out of my way to really promote who shared it, but all right. Here's old Tim.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Let's listen to that one more time.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Now, he had said this during the White Dudes for Harris fundraiser, which I don't think there's a dumber, more embarrassing thing to be involved with than White Dudes for Harris. Again, I don't know why it has to be said. And the funny thing is, they have White Dudes for Harris. So they tried to position. If you're looking at this, the screen's kind of getting blocked by my Lions of Liberty logo here. The White Dudes for Harris logo is a trucker cap, because they're just good old boys who believe in Kamala Harris, as if that's a thing. It's not. All the White Dudes for Harris are your typical super white lib sitting at a keyboard all day, will go to wine and cheese parties and try to get close to the hot chicks by pretending that they're feminist. That's who goes White Dudes for Harris. But what he said there, insulting. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Okay, socialism and neighborliness came down to this, Tim. Let me explain it to you. Your neighbor under socialism was told to report on you. Your children were told to report on you. Your children were told to report on your neighbors and turn them into the government, because that's what the state needed and wanted to keep a check on the population. They told all the neighbors to report on the other neighbors. It happened time and time again under every socialist government without fail. People sent to the gulags because who? Their fucking neighbors were incentivized to tell on them by virtue of threats of force, by virtue of, hey, under socialism, everybody's poor, nobody has anything. So if you report your neighbors and rat them out, you might get a little benefit. Maybe we look the other way next time you're caught doing something that socialism, under whatever dictator, whatever dictatorial elite government is put into place there, pretending they're working for the people, decides. So fuck this guy. Fuck this entire nonsense trying to sneak this in under the guise of, oh, shucks, we're just doing this for the good of each other. You could have a socialist approach to, as I said, crowdfunding something. If you want to get together on a voluntary basis, that's one thing, Tim. But this fuck doesn't want anything voluntary about it. Every socialist neighborly program he would put into place is at the end of a gun, making sure that he's using your tax dollars, mandated that you can't opt out of it, right? Because as a neighbor, you could choose to or to not lend your neighbor a lawnmower. You could choose to not babysit your neighbor's kids. You could choose to, maybe you want to give them a ride to school. Maybe you want to take part in the PTA or not. Whatever your local choice it may be, you're not going to get penalized for it. You're not going to get jailed for it. You're not going to have threat put on your house, your livelihood, and your family because of it. But under old Tim fucking Walz to the walls, you guaranteed will opt in. Otherwise, they will come after you with full force. So fuck this analogy. Fuck Tim Walz. I mean, he won the old white guy lottery, but still unbelievably terrible choice. When you look at his record, when you look at this kind of bullshit, I sincerely hope that people can see this as one of the most progressive tickets that has ever been. Without fail. One of the most leftist, progressive nonsense tickets full of two fucking idiots who want nothing more than to hurt you, vindictively attack anybody that's not bought into this Marxist gobbledygook, to quote the great Norm Macdonald, communist gobbledygook. And they will have zero problem going after, demonizing, attacking, and essentially turning every 3-letter, 4-letter, 5-letter group that exists under the purview of the U.S. government against you in order to complete these goals. Absolutely an idiotic choice for Kamala, but thank you. She's an idiot. So, we have to really appreciate and be thankful for, say a prayer tonight, light a candle, for just how stupid she is. Because without it, she'd have a much cleaner path to the presidency. And with the media complicit behind her, with these swings where she had predictably terrible matchups against Donald Trump, now she's somehow gained 10% in the last couple of weeks. 10%. Nothing that she's done has been good. Nothing that she has done has been worthwhile. Nothing she said is interesting, intelligent. You saw her talking about the fucking cloud, this video that came out, where she doesn't know what she's talking about. The cloud's not a hard concept. Kamala Harris is too stupid to even understand a basic concept like what cloud computing is. She literally is talking about it as though it is a cloud, a literal cloud. This person's supposed to be president. Thank God she is so transparently terrible. That's all I can say is thank God she's so transparently awful. Okay, let's move on from this. Let's talk about this crash that happened. I've talked about before on the show, and I'm putting it into, again, the long-awaited launch of the Libertarian Party website, which is coming, just is taking forever. I've talked about one of the big issues that the Libertarian Party has to address and put in its platform and emphasize is one of the keys to our philosophy being successful is that under a more free system, a deregulated system that's not top down, especially when it comes to financial marketplaces, when it comes to money, when it comes to options and investing, you are diversifying risk. Right now, we live in a society, a global society, that is on the verge of collapse because of the financial ties that bind us, right? Everything is dependent on another one. It is quite literally the house of cards where you see one of the cards slips. The most recent card to slip was the Japanese yen, right? And the reason this all came about was because of the carry market, which essentially is people will buy because the yen they had kept the yen low for decades. Interest rates in Japan kept artificially low for decades. The yen was cheap. That made it easy to export. That made it tougher on the general population, right? Because your yen's not worth shit. But as far as exporting, in Japan's market's like half their market is exports. Your exporters are making a ton, right? People would borrow yen at a low cost. Then they could use that money, turn around and invest it in other stuff that's more high yield somewhere else. So that was the carry market, right? That's the yen. They, for the first time, raised their interest rates up. This shakes the marketplace to its core. I think it was a 12.5% sell-off is the last I saw, right, in a 24-hour period. Unbelievable destruction within the marketplace. But shouldn't that just be Japan's problem? Shouldn't that just be contained there, right? No, of course not. Because all of our financial institutions are tied to each other. All of our markets, all of our banks are buying from each other, borrowing from each other, selling to each other. They're all intertied because there is no diversification of risk. Putting your money in a different market, maybe you could put it over in the market in Africa somewhere, and maybe it'll be a little bit more isolated, but even that's questionable. It used to be the way you could protect yourself. Different currencies, different markets. Now, of course, Bitcoin is the way to go if you want to protect yourself, or another currency in that sphere. And I like the fact that there is a senator, and I'm forgetting her name, but that put forth a strategic reserve in Bitcoin. I think Donald Trump has also maybe even talked about this. But the fact that we're so tied into this, that there really is not a truly functional market to diversify your risk portfolio here, is one of the major problems we have with our society. When you don't have diversification of risk, all of the incentive is for our common problem of we can't let this thing fall. We can't let any of the legs of the stool or the table crumble or get weak, or else this entire thing fucking collapses. There can be no real market correction. Even this, right? The market tried to correct itself a little bit, and it caused all this economic, chaos to the point that you had trading stopped, right? They stopped, like Robinhood again, stopped trading. I think Charles Schwab, I don't know if this is them bullshitting or not, but they had issues, right? Oh, we had issues. We had to sell some trading. So all of the incentive is not to have any sort of market correction ever. There's too much risk in that one very large pool to allow it. So we're never going to have it. The only market correction we're ever going to have in a true sense is when everything collapses at once. We have to have a diversification of systems here. There have to be completely parallel tracks, which you can keep to keep your money safe in some fucking way, shape, or form here. And, as of now, you can put it in gold, but again, gold's not legal tender. So, point being, under the libertarian purview, you need to have parallel tracks for money, for finances, to keep these things isolated in some way, shape, or form. If you want to fuck around and find out with your money, go ahead, but we can't do it on a global scale. Okay, let's talk about the United Kingdom, because one of the other things that I have personally liked to talk about, and this was something that was interesting because I found at the trade shows that I've attending, and thank God for the last time the episode I said I was like, my agency may collapse. It looks like things are coming back around. So thank God for that. Although who knows how long it'll last right now with the fucking recession. But I had a client who had a big trade show, and I had mentioned before, I was talking to them about the state of affairs, not only with immigration, but also the top-down inundation of the population with propaganda about the benefits of mass migration and how they're just forced to take it, and the crackdowns by the powers that be, especially in places in Europe, on anybody that dissents. So there have been quite a few protests in various nations about the problem of mass migration. Because remember, it's not just the economic impact of mass migration, it is also the crime. We just saw in the UK right now, you're seeing protests not only in Southpaw, where 3 young girls were stabbed by a second generation, by the way, I believe it was Rwandan, son of Rwandan refugees who grew up in England, but had, from what I'm understanding anyway, been radicalized by other immigrants into a different belief. So while he's born English, you'd hope that he would have acculturated and been happy to be in England, goes out and stabs 3 white young girls at a dance class. What a piece of garbage. Hopefully burns in fucking hell forever. But the people are protesting about that because they see what is obviously a symptom of the mass migration. Because the town of Southpaw, I think, was something like, used to be, actually, I might be confusing with another town. Maybe I'm confusing with, well, I don't want to say because I'm not positive. Point being, you have entire towns being changed because of mass migration. You have entire cultures being changed because of mass migration, where there is no longer an accepted modicum of, here's the consistent standard of morality. Here's the consistent religion. And there might be other religions interspersed here, but, overall, we kind of all go in this one way. And there's not a lot of violence in this way because we all kind of go in the same path. Now, there is definitely something to be said for diversification of thought, diversification of genetics, diversification of all these things. But when it's an inorganic diversification, when you've got airdrops of tens of thousands of people into monocultures, or what might be essentially an isolated community, whether that's religious monoculture or not, you're going to have issues. And that's what you're seeing here. But people are coming on to realize it's not just the on-the-ground stuff you're seeing with violence and the rapes ticking up and the crime rate skyrocketing and knife violence skyrocketing and violence against women. I mean, there was just a poll in the European Union of women that said something like, 25%, or I think maybe even higher, like 30% of women are scared to go out in their own communities after dark, or in your community outside of their specific neighborhood after dark, because of the skyrocketing rates of violence. It's not just that the people are seeing in front of their face, but it is that people are realizing their representatives, their governments are doing this on purpose, and they don't fucking care what the outcomes are. Keir Starmer, who of course had just had this epic win in England because these people paradoxically voted in the Labour Party again, even though the Labour Party hates them. And this is, I don't know, because Nigel Farage had a third-party option of true conservatives that got a third of the vote, and the Conservative Party over there had recently fucked around, and nobody was happy about that. But Keir Starmer's over there in the UK, which is some of these massive problems. And again, we just saw these protests. And what's he doing? Oh, that's right. He's promising not to crack down on all of the people that were protesting recently. Any of the Muslim, gangs that are out there protesting, any of the people that took violence under Black Lives Matter, any of that stuff. No. He's talking about how all of these people are racists that are protests. Never mind the underlying causes that they're very right to complain about. No, all these people are racists, and that they will be hunted, they will be found, they will be prosecuted, they will be punished. And of course, he's not talking about being caught at a protest acting violently. No. Because remember, in the UK, thought crime is illegal. Humor crime is illegal. Yeah, these same people that are backing Kamala Harris, who would 100% like to pass a hate crime bill, a hate speech bill, targeting you if you dare to make a joke that people find offensive, quote unquote, on the left. The same shit these fucking comics are espousing. That is what Keir Starmer's putting into place. I'm going to have to edit that out of the podcast version, but whatever. The live stream is going to stay in. That's what Keir Starmer is putting into the UK. It's already in there. If you post a meme criticizing immigration in the UK, they will come to your house. If you post a joke that is offensive in the UK, they will come to your house. You might go to prison. Legitimately and for real, you may go to prison. The same thing happens in France. So he's out there promising to crack down on the protesters. And now, because this is such a massive institution of protest and upset and realization of what's going on in the UK, the real threat of mass incarceration, at least mass fines, I'm very fascinated to see what's going to happen here. You're coming to a true point of my questioning of whether or not the UK is in a position of potential violent revolution. Because when you've got a population, as whatever they might vote, it's a powder keg right now. It's an absolute powder keg. And you see something like this can set that off. And when you have a government that simply says, well, fuck you, you're wrong, you bunch of goddamn racists, for being upset about kids being stabbed and violence being up and women being raped and nobody feeling safe. And yes, the economic ramifications of all this. And we don't give a shit. You're wrong and you're racist. Where do you go? Where do you go? When the cops start knocking on your door because you're not happy that your neighborhood's not safe anymore and you can't talk about it, where do you go? So things to ponder. Okay, that's going to wrap up the episode, guys. If you want to support Porch Tour, Robbie's still going to be doing some more dates, so give him a shout out, porchtour.com. If you like us and what we're doing, go to Lions of Liberty on Patreon or on Locals, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. And I would also love it if you want to give us a review. That really helps. Go on Apple, go on Spotify, go on whatever it is, whatever you're a podcaster du jour, please give us that 5-star review and a little write-up. Even if it's just a couple sentences, really helps. And also, my other comedy podcast, the First Episode Podcast, if you can subscribe to that, give that a review, a write-up, I'd be grateful. We're recording Wednesday tomorrow night. We either do it Wednesday or Thursday every other week. We're doing Mr. Belvedere, which is, of course, a classic. You can watch that for free on YouTube, by the way. Apparently, nobody wants to buy the rights to Mr. Belvedere, which is sad. So, free on YouTube. And also a UK show on Netflix called The End of the Fucking World. So that will be the shows. Check it out. We do a new show and an old show, first episode, and see how they stack up. It's a fun time. The First Episode Podcast. All right. Thanks, guys. From me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Network, and from Mean Age Daydream. Keep those electric eyes on me, babe. And keep that ray gun to my head. Later.